It's been 200 years since the Peterloo Massacre took place here, in St Peter's Square on August 16, 1819. The Peterloo Massacre occurred when a peaceful protest for parliamentary reform resulted in a devastating riot. 18 people were killed and 700 people were injured when the cavalry charged at the innocent protesters. Protesters claimed that giving working men the right to vote would improve the use of public money and create fairer taxes. Henry Hunt was the main speaker, a prominent figure in the campaign for universal suffrage. It's estimated that 100,000 men, women and children attended the event. The Guardian newspaper was established by John Edward Taylor in response to what had happened. Peterloo was instrumental in securing working men the right to vote, but what does Peterloo mean to the people of today?
I don't know what it is.
I don't know much about the Peterloo Massacre, but I know that there is a sort of memorial that happened in St Peter's Square.
It means nothing, I've never heard of it.
Working men against the so-called lords at the time, wasn't it?
To mark the bicentennial of the Peterloo Massacre, Manchester's People's History Museum are playing host to a special exhibition. Disrupt, Peterloo and Protest opened on the 23rd of March and will run until February 2020. Museum Programme Manager Helen Thackeray emphasised the importance of Peterloo in this day and age.
So it's one of the most significant peaceful protests that ended in violence in the history in Britain. I think it's important to understand that we haven't always had in this country as much freedom and freedom of speech as perhaps we might have today. I think it's important to understand that the similarities between people who were living 200 years ago and people who are living today, there are still inequalities, there are still people who want change, there's still people who are frustrated. Luckily, we do live in a fairer society, but there is still equality to be fought for.
Are there any parallels between politics at the time of Peterloo and now?
I think it's really interesting in the context of Brexit at the moment. We obviously saw the People's Vote march very recently where hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets in London, and I think a larger part of that was people's frustration with what's happening in Parliament at the moment. And I think it's really interesting to think that 200 years ago people had those very similar frustrations about a lack of control, and that the people who were in power weren't necessarily making what they thought were the right choices.
It's clear that 200 years on, Peterloo is still relevant to the people of today. The protest was a catalyst for parliamentary reform and will be for many years to come. Alice Stevens, reporting from the People's History Museum in Spinningfields, Manchester.